Welcome to the Subconscious Sales Podcast, Subconscious Sales. This is Jason. I'm here with Brian Ankney. And Brian, where are you calling from today?
I am in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I am about 6 houses from the ocean and about 9 from the bay. So if a tidal wave comes, you'll just see me get washed away.
Awesome. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. And
Yeah,
where are you? What big city are you 1 hour from?
Philadelphia. So from what I've heard, it was pretty crazy there last night.
Yeah, so we're actually talking about 15 hours after the Super Bowl, which was great to watch. Were you able to watch it, Brian?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Are you an Eagles
It-
fan?
I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan, but
That's right.
all my friends are Eagles fans, so I wanted them to win, and they were playing the Chiefs, and so I don't think anybody in the AFC likes the Chiefs. So
This is true. This is true. Yeah, so you're right by you're a fisherman too. Is that correct? You enjoy fishing?
yep, I try to go fishing 2 or 3 days a week. That's why I live here.
Awesome, man. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So I'll let people know. A lot of times on here we talk. Well, you talk a little bit about everything on here, mostly car wash related at this time, and we're usually talking B2C, so like business to customer. But today, because of you, we're going to talk a lot of B2B, so business to business, and just because for people listening, that's what we're going to be chatting about mostly today. Now, not a lot of those things overlap, but I wanted to give an opportunity for the other side of the car wash business is the B2B part. So manufacturers, distributors, all that kind of stuff, trade shows, all that happiness. So, yeah, so you're originally from about 4 hours from me. So you're originally from Cincinnati, correct?
Yep,
And
yes, I
and,
am.
and what's your background?
Well, I always knew I wanted to get in the car business. And so when I graduated college, my dad said that nobody will respect you if you don't sell cars and manage for at least a year. So I did that. And then I became a consultant for RL Polk and flew city to city each day and helped them with a program called PDMM, which was just under 2,000 fields of information on 90% of American households. And we were doing profiling before profiling was cool. So we help car dealerships know that, this particular person that gets these magazines, that has this many kids, that makes this much money, lives in this area, is the most likely person to buy a particular make and model from you. And so then you would market to those individuals. Since then, now that seems like a very normal way to do marketing, but that was 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I worked for a CRM company running their sales department for a while in implementation. And then 20 years ago, I started working in the B2B trade publication with Auto Success, professional car washing detailing. And, now we have 18 others. So it's anything with wheels other than go-karts, golf carts, and RVs. Pretty much we have a publication for.
Awesome. So early on in your career, you were using technology to be more effective in marketing a business. It sounds like you were kind of at the precipice of that.
Yep.
So tell us about Babcock's. I know I'll give my opinion of the company because it's really good. But how long have you been with Babcock's, and what's your experience been working for them?
20 years. I've been with Auto Success 20 years, and Auto Success was acquired in
Oh,
2017.
okay,
And
gotcha.
so I've been with them ever since we were acquired. And when we were with Auto Success, we were a publication that had 5 employees. So, 5 people did the magazine, did the website, did the newsletters, did the webinars, did everything. And so we all kind of did everything. And then we came to, be a part of Babcock's, which was really pretty incredible. Babcock's is the largest automotive business to business publisher in the world. And, I like to tell people we have the coolest toys. You've seen our studio.
Oh
It's
yeah,
pretty incredible. We do about 3,000 marketing videos a year for our customers and 341 video podcasts, which you've been on a few.
yeah, fantastic. Now, so to give people some context, we're talking car washing. Oh my God, there's so many different directions I want to go with this. But again, you've kind of been technology driven. So 2005, Brian, does not seem like 20 years ago to me, but it is. Because I graduated in 95. When did you graduate?
95 from high school and
Same.
2000 from college.
All right. Yeah. So we're the same age. Fantastic. So the Babcocks, one thing that impresses me, because how long have they been around?
Since 1905.
Yes.
We're the reason we're in Akron, Ohio is at one point, all the tires in the world came from Akron, Ohio. So pretty much anybody our age or older will know that. And anybody that's younger than our age you just learned something. all the tires in the world used to come from Akron.
People have no idea the Rust Belt, so I live in Canton, Ohio, and people want to look that up. So Hoover Company, Timken Roller Bearing, steel plants. Akron is 25 minutes north of me. Firestone, Goodyear, now Bridgestone, but BF Goodrich, all these tire companies are all from here. And then we're close to Cleveland. So you and I grew up in the steel Rust Belt. Anywhere from Detroit down to Cincinnati, over to Buffalo, and now where you live now, Philadelphia. Like, we were blue collar business. That's been this whole area for 100, I would say 200 years, because in this, at least of these parts, and I would assume Philly as well, you had trains, you were working on trains, train engines. We had the canal even before trains, which was huge business, and then automotive, and then the 90s and 2000s, all that left. So everybody had to pivot, and it's been really interesting. So explain Cincinnati, because they were chemical. Explain how that came about.
Cincinnati, Procter & Gamble's in Cincinnati, which is they at one point were quite a bit larger than they are now. They have divested some of their brands over the last 15 years, but Procter & Gamble's really large in Cincinnati. There's a lot of whiskey made in Cincinnati. At one point, Cincinnati was the beer capital of the United States pre-prohibition.
I did not know
so
that.
Cincinnati they actually had factories there. They made a lot of safes, like safes you would put to put your guns in or your gold or whatever. North of Cincinnati was Hamilton, which was the safe capital of the world. There was a lot of things built, and it's interesting. It's all not gone. In our research department at Babcock's came up with a statistic that 70% of automotive in the United States is done within a 5-hour drive of Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, that's interesting. For people who don't know, I spent 20 years in the car repair business as well. So I've been working on cars since pretty 1992, like officially as a mechanic since like 92, 93, somewhere around there when I was 15, 16 years old. And then all the way to the 2000s, and just about 10 years in the car washing business. So I did not know that stat. I think actually you might have told me that before and I forgot, but we are center. And car washing, we're kind of center. I would say that stat's probably really similar. Just in 25 minutes of me, we got, what's the one chemical company close to here?
Synergy Solutions.
Yeah, well, Synergy.
And then DRB's right here. Pettit's right here. Denkar's right here. There's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
Yeah, there's another chemical company as well. It's really serious. I hear Hamilton's only 2.5 hours away, and then Detroit, who has a lot of other car wash equipment companies, is only 3 hours away. And wasn't at one point Cincinnati the soap capital of the world?
Yes, that was with Procter & Gamble. Yep.
Okay, and why was that?
You know what? I'm not sure.
I thought it was the pigs, because the pig fat, wasn't it?
Oh, that would make sense. That's what Cincinnati. I didn't want to bring that up, but I think Cincinnati was it's mostly German, because the Germans were good at butchering pigs, and so that when the pigs would come from all over the state, that Cincinnati was just a place where they would butcher tons and tons of pigs, and then they would drink beer. So they were known for pigs and known for beer.
Bacon and beer. What a great city. I'd say that's a good start.
Yeah.
and I believe that's why it became soap, because they rendered the fat for the soap from the pigs. I think.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So with how have you seen things? So now, let's shift a bit the B2B. So any of the car wash manufacturers or distributors, anybody watching this, to me, Babcock's, the reason I brought them up, they impressed me, because even in 5-year, 10-year, 20-year windows, I see companies that can't pivot. And I'm always kind of on the edge of technology, the edge of where things are going. And we could talk about where car washes are going if we want. But for a company to be around 120 years, they obviously had to pivot. So just from 2005, from print to web to podcast to social media, how have you seen things change, and how has Babcock's pivoted?
Well, a lot of people will say print is dead, and it's absolutely not dead. Our print actually continues to grow. Now it grows very, very, not a lot. It's not. We're not talking double-digit growth. Like at one point that we were that, but
just
our
the idea
print
of
continues.
Growth is unexpected.
Yeah, there's if you have $5 to spend and I have $500,000 to spend on the internet, when somebody does one single search, we could both look the same to them. And what print does is it really adds some validity to your brand. It adds, it shows that you're one of the companies that made it. And it helps to build a lot more trust in your brand. So our print continues to grow, but not anything like our other parts. I believe it was 5 years ago, our digital overtook our print as far as revenue went.
Okay.
Which is really exciting. And our digital continues to grow, and it is growing quickly because not only are you doing more banner ads, you're doing more different types of digital. You're doing targeting. You're putting commercials on the televisions of people that own car washes in a certain market. I mean, when they stream televisions, there's a lot there to digital that wasn't there. So it's pretty easy for it to grow. And then with video for us, we got in the video business, well, we were always in it a little bit, but October 2019, we turned a whole floor of our building into a garage studio. And then COVID happened. And so, that could have been a very bad thing for us when it actually ended up being a really good thing for us because we had the only studio like that in the United States, and trade shows couldn't do live trade shows. Everybody needed video. And so when we had this great asset that maybe it would have taken us 5 years to get everyone to come see it and see what we could do, it all happened pretty quickly during COVID. And now we're creating, I think we created just over 3,000 videos for our customers last year. We did 341 of those podcasts.
Wow.
I think we had almost 30,000 people that attended one of our webinars. So whereas print is growing just a little bit, digital doubles every couple of years and print like triples, or no, I'm sorry, not print, video triples. And so it's really, we at one point, no question, the first 100 years we were in business, we were a print company.
Yeah.
Now we're a video company that does digital and has print.
That's amazing. Well, first of all, again, I am impressed. I will repeat, I'm impressed that print is not declining. That's still a testament to you guys you're an expert at it and you're doing it right. Because for most people, so many newspaper companies just plain died in the last 20 years. They're gone. I would say probably, who knows, a huge percent of them has just been buried a while ago. And the fact that you're still growing a bit and you pivoted, what do you contribute to the culture or mindset of the company to be able to pivot and do that? And why can't other companies kind of see the writing on the wall and do that? Any insight there?
We do have the benefit of being a family-owned company. So, we don't have a board of directors and a million layers of management that can say no. Like one thing that we did about a year and a half ago, we were given a tour to somebody that came in for an interview, just like you have done. Mm-hmm. And they said, boy, you guys do all this video. We make all these parts and we need 360 spin photography. Well, 2 weeks later, we had made a major investment and we had an operational 360 spin photography studio put into our building. And now we get pallets of parts or soaps or oils or gloves or anything you can imagine are coming in every week that we shoot this with. And so we've been really fast to adapt. And I hate to use phrases that everybody's heard 1,000 times, but fast to fail is a philosophy that we have too. If you have a great idea, there's a good chance that this week we might start trying to execute on it, and we'll find out if it's going to work or not.
Man, there's something to be said about that. I'm reading a book right now, and it's from a private entrepreneur, and he's talking about his private ventures versus those dealing with entities such as, government organizations where there's committees and there's consultants. And I've experienced this as well. Probably a lot of car wash owners have, dealing with the committees and dealing with zoning and permitting. And it's a shame how much red tape certain organizations or certain entities have to deal with. And when you can be quick and nimble and fast, there's something to be said being small, nimble, and privately owned. You're right about that. And I would say private equity is probably dealing with that a little bit right now too, not having that.
Yeah. One of the things that happens, I think, when organizations get too large is that you have people that are not necessarily they're not going to earn a whole lot more money if they have a great idea that revolutionizes the business, but they might lose their job. And so people's motivations become a little bit different in a large organization. They start thinking, boy, I'm 10 years away from retiring and I have a pension, right? I'm 10 years away from retiring and, I don't want to lose my job. I've got a good job, as opposed to really thinking like an entrepreneur. And that's one of the things that we're encouraged to do at Babcock's is to think like an entrepreneur. And Bill Babcock's door is open. Unless he's like in a meeting, his door is open, and anybody in our company is welcome to walk in there anytime and share an idea with him. I think that really allows us to move quick.
Man, there's a lot to learn there. That is fantastic. That is good stuff. So where do you see trends right now for, let's say, car wash companies, and how do you use a pie chart and this much should go to print? Here's what you can expect from print. I like what you said earlier about that as legitimacy, especially for the smaller companies. But all about what is digital compared to video, compared to podcast. What are some things you're seeing on your end?
It really kind of depends on what type of product they have
Okay.
and what type of budget they have. I mean, very rarely would I ever tell somebody to do all one or all the other. I mean, unless they're like, we only want this. I
I'd
mean,
agree.
I'm not going to tell them they're not allowed to advertise with us, but I mean, I usually tell people whatever your budget is, let's split that amongst 3 or 4 things, especially at the start, because we'll be able to measure those things. I mean, let's say that you make soap or you make car washes or whatever you do. I could have 3 or 4 other people that are successful advertising with me that are doing it differently than you. And that has to do with, are your salespeople like pit bulls and like, can they take warm leads and convert them? Or do you need people to call on the phone that are ready to buy? Like those are 2 different advertising strategies. And a
Wow.
lot of, a lot of companies want people to see them and fill out a form and say, okay, I'd like a quote. Whereas other people, they just want somebody to download a white paper because they've got people that will follow up with them with pertinent information, over a time period and take a high funnel lead all the way to a sale as opposed to just wanting low funnel leads. And so, really, a lot about the company matters more than just what they're selling.
Is this something you consult people through? So you basically interview them and help guide them on what's best for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I try to give them a realistic expectation that, hey, let's try, if there's 4 things that you're comfortable with, like maybe you're comfortable with a little bit of content, which content is always hard to track conversion other than people telling you that they read it
Okay.
or they saw it or they listened to it or they watched it. But it's also one of the best performing things. It'll provide lift to everything else that you do. And so I always recommend people do that. And oftentimes there's ways they can do that without spending money from their marketing budget where it's free.
Okay.
Then I usually recommend that you do some print, and it doesn't have to be a full page ad. I mean, most of the magazines we have, you can have a print ad for $500 or $600.
Wow.
And so you don't have to spend all of your money. Just don't put a paragraph of information in there. Let's use the print to get that brand recognition. Let them, know they've seen you before, and then use content. And then now you've got that pillar, I guess, taken care of. Then we go into, like, some companies want a ton of lead gen. There's a few tactics that work for lead gen. Webinars, because people register and they're kind of hand raisers because they're interested in the content.
Yeah.
Then you've got direct email. Direct email is great because it's just your message. It's in their inbox. The one problem with direct email is you're not going to reach as broad of an audience because some people don't opt in to get the third-party emails.
Yeah.
But and it's not a tactic you can't just be a direct email company and that's all that you do.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that don't respond to that message. I usually recommend that as something maybe you do quarterly, or like do 3 sends total over a 3-month period.
I agree with that.
And then the third one that's kind of new is, so many people have a bad taste in their mouth or social media. They all say, oh, I hired this PR person. They wrote all this content. It cost me tons of money and they posted it and nobody really responded. Well, depending on, like, a lot of people lean towards LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not necessarily where a lot of business owners are going. You've got a lot of consultants on there, a lot of people trying to sell products. You've got people looking for jobs, people that are looking to hire people. But you know what everybody has? Everybody's in a fishing club, a bowling club. They've got a boyfriend or girlfriend, or they've got grandkids. Everybody's looking at Meta, at least the business owners in the markets that we deal with.
Facebook and Instagram.
It's people, it's our age and older.
Yeah.
I mean, if your grandma has social media, I guarantee it's not LinkedIn. It's probably Facebook.
Yeah, she's not on TikTok. Well, she might
No.
be, but she'll for sure on Facebook. Yeah.
And so with what you can, and so what people say, oh, we were doing posts and we weren't getting any response. Well, Facebook and Instagram are going to show your posts to like around 5% of the people you're connected to. What you can do as a business is, Facebook is a business, Meta's a business. If you pay them money, they'll put your message in front of people. And the great thing is you don't have to pay them very much money. I mean, we run campaigns all the time where it's $500. And if you have a video and for $500, I can have 8,000 to 20,000 through plays of that video to the right audience. It's not just getting posted to like anybody that might know you on Facebook.
Yeah, that doesn't benefit anybody, including Facebook. So they're going to try to get it to the people that are interested.
Yeah, like what we did is we've been doing it for years. And you take like, we take the people that get the magazine, the people that sign up for webinars, the people that have signed up for newsletters, and you're able to upload that list. And now this isn't something that you need Babcock's to do. I mean, I can do it, but like a lot of companies, you have your customers. So you're uploading your customers just like I'm uploading my audience. Well, what Meta will do is they'll say, okay, well, these 3 people over here look a lot like your audience. Let's put them in and see if they engage with your content. If they engage, it keeps them. So say this guy engages and these two kicks him out. Then it puts more in and it puts more in, and you keep keeping the ones that are engaging and getting rid of the ones that don't. And so over time, you can build a tremendous audience.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably run 5 campaigns per brand per week for the last 5 years. And so my audiences are immense. Like, they're huge and they engage. And so for $500 to get 8,000 to 20,000 people to watch a video that's pertinent to the business that they're in, I don't know of any other tactic that can get that, or generate 100 leads for $500. Now they're high funnel leads. Yeah. If you've got the pit bulls, those are pit bull leads. If you've got guys that wait for the phone to ring, it's not for them.
Yeah. That's insane. So it's really interesting. People, the people are listening, is like when someone hires me to go consult, or even when I used to work on cars, like those who are best at what they do, they don't know the answer. They're asking you more questions. They're asking the customer more questions to try to make sure you're helping them specifically for their needs. And it's good to know you were trying to inquire what their goals are, how they are as a company, like you said, how their sales are, what does their sales look like? And so you're tailoring what you're putting out to what they can afford and what their needs are. And it sounds like you have a broad spectrum of a portfolio to offer them.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like I've dealt with a lot of companies, and the exact same results from 2 marketing campaigns, the identical results. One could be very successful for one company, and then it could be a failure for the other, because the other may not be equipped to handle that type of lead. So you just have to do a little digging and find out, like if in a perfect world, how would customers reach out to you? What do you want to have happen? And that's, and companies can talk, they could do that internally. I mean, because there's a lot of ways to advertise without working with a company like mine. I mean, you can do some Google. Unfortunately, Google, it's kind of a finite, thing. You can maximize it, and you really can't pay to go much beyond what you can maximize. But I mean, for the car wash owners that are listening to this, you have a large database of people that have used your car wash. So why not upload those into Meta and let it build, lookalike audience based upon that? And utilize that. I mean, there's nothing cheaper than that. And it'll produce new business every single month. Yeah.
For those car wash owners, now you guys don't do it for owners. You're more for the equipment companies, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Got it. And for those car wash owners, there's tools out there, as well as specific car wash marketing companies. Had one on a podcast just a couple podcasts ago that can help you with that, because owners, you do this every day, Brian, but even for me, podcast, Meta, Facebook keeps changing things, and it's really frustrating. If you don't do it all the time, it sounds easy, but there's a little bit of a learning curve to it, when it comes to uploading all that stuff.
And I mean, I actually don't pull the levers within our social media. We have a department for that. But one thing that I have learned from dealing with my clients is that when you're doing a lot of Facebook marketing, you actually have somebody at Facebook that is watching your stuff and giving you advice on a weekly basis on how to do it better. And even more than that, they'll answer the phone.
Wow, I did not know that. So Babcock's, they have an agent at Facebook helping them out.
Yeah. And
that's
so
huge.
I definitely can understand where somebody's coming from if they're like, I don't understand how this works, because if you're not really good at it, it's better to find an agency. I mean, there's large agencies out there in every market that could help you, get your feet on the ground with Facebook marketing.
Wow, I did not know Babcock's had that kind of connection. That's great to hear from both Babcock's point of view, and it's great to hear Facebook's actually doing that for the larger agencies. So that's positive. That's super solid.
I'll give the whole audience a free piece of information that I just learned about 10 days ago.
All right.
So for years, if we did a $500 campaign, Facebook said to make it for 5 days, because you can choose how long you want it to run, and it just spreads your money over that time. Facebook reached out to us and said, why don't you start testing 14 days on that same spend? So we started testing 14 days on that same spend about 2 weeks ago. And it looks like every 5-day campaign is now going to be a 14-day campaign. So that's a free Facebook insider tip.
That's huge insider tip. And that's why it's good to know people. It's good to reach out to marketing companies sometimes, because I like to do a lot of my own marketing, which probably shows because I'm harder to find than I should be. But when I was I used to run Facebook for car washes, and we're talking 6 years ago or so, and I kept up on it at the time, but Facebook would change things fairly regularly, and you have to keep up on it. And this is why you could do some things yourself, but it's worth paying companies that do this for a living to find out these tips, to have them do it for a while. And when those Facebook juices get going, so you pay a company to do some things, guess what? That sticks to you for a while. And Facebook will kind of bless you for a while when you're changing, shifting, and overall, not only spend a little bit of money, but if you're just active, the more you're active, it's kind of like a car wash. I teach all the time. The busier you are, the busier you're going to be, because people physically see things, and the same thing as a digital realm. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, you got to stay after it. You definitely have to stay after it, and you're 100% right. I mean, another free tip that we got from Facebook maybe in the spring is, for a long time you thought that having a longer caption and a longer call to action was going to help you. Well, Facebook, for whatever reason, decided that they didn't want it that way anymore, and now I believe it's 50 characters on the call to action and 100 characters on the actual caption, or
Wow.
it might be reversed. Like my team does that design, but like we went from having multiple lines of text to really short stuff, and it improved our results. But Facebook makes changes, and if you're not paying attention, then you could spend months of money and get subpar results.
Absolutely. This is good insight, people. This is why you're here. And Brian, you're making this great. So speaking of making it great, what has your experience been with the podcast? What are you seeing on the podcast end with like companies who are using you for a podcast?
One of the things that's really started to happen with us is people that would come in to be on one of my shows, they'll decide that they want to kind of do their own podcast, and then they'll try to do their own podcast, and then they'll determine that it's not easy to do your own podcast. And so we've been doing a lot of podcast series lately for people. So they'll come in maybe once every 6 months and shoot 6 episodes or 12 episodes, and utilize my team. And it's working for them.
Good.
So whether you and you don't have to use Babcock's. I mean, I actually was listening to another podcast. You can rent podcast space for like $150 an hour, shoot 3 of them in an hour, and pay somebody to edit them. And so just about any company can have a podcast. But from what I hear, it's working for anybody that puts in the time to have good educational content.
So what are you seeing on your end for Babcock? It's like, what are your clients seeing? What kind of results are you seeing from the podcast that you're doing with Wash Talk?
Well, I have one client that'll probably see this, so I'm not going to say his name, but he's been getting a lot of phone calls from car wash groups that I could also name, but they might watch this show as well. But let's just say they're names that no one on this podcast won't know. Mm-hmm. And so I do know that the people that are the big decision makers in big organizations are watching podcasts. And then there's another guy, I don't know if you know him or not, Jason, but some people from Australia saw him on the podcast and they invited him to come speak in Australia.
Yeah, still owe you for that one. That was great. I tell you what, that was for those. Yeah, I've been on Brian's podcast, the Wash Talk, a couple times, and the second time it went okay, but we were both sick as a dog. Now, people don't know that by watching it, but well, first of all, the second time I was on, believe it or not, you told me you were going to release it, but I wasn't paying much attention because I was on the road. And again, my personal social media, I'm out there, but I'm not the easiest person to get a hold of. And right now, I'll change that at one point. But I got an email, a phone call within 24 hours of your most recent podcast getting released. People just reaching out for information of more of what I was talking about. And the first podcast, yeah, we got a lot of connections. A lot of my clients benefited from it, as well as Australia called me and I benefited from it, and so did they, because I'm definitely heavy on teaching, heavy on real world education. I cannot say that more clearly. Like, how can this genuinely help you make more money? That's my goal in life, is to help everybody, especially business owners, make a lot more money. And so far, I'm even hugely blessed. Being on your podcast has been great, and it has given results. So what have you seen? What makes, so someone say they want to be on your podcast, and you make arrangements and make a deal with them to be on your podcast. What makes a good podcast? What do you see like these podcasts? What are some ingredients that make a podcast do really well?
I ask every guest the same question when I'm planning when we do a meeting to write the questions.
Okay.
And that is, have you had the same phone call 5 or 10 times in the last week and a half talking to your clients?
Good.
Because if there's a topic that's top of mind for all the car wash owners that you're working with, there's a good chance it's top of mind for a lot of them. And so I really kind of look to the guests to give me the topics that'll be hot. And then I'll ask them, what they want to talk about. But I'd like to kind of lead with, like what's the thing that's burning up your phone right now? Like, what's everybody talking to you about? And because it's a good topic for them to talk about, because people must think they're an expert about it because they wouldn't be calling them otherwise.
That's true. That's a good point. And also for those watching, again, any of the manufacturers that you want to be on Brian's podcast, trust that he'll send you questions, but also trust that he will take the lead, because I know, just doing a few podcasts myself, I have a lot of weaknesses. A few strengths are just keeping talk going. I'm very comfortable with that, but I know a lot of people aren't. And when people aren't comfortable, you are very talented at just keeping things moving, keeping things smooth. And by the way, they edit. So don't worry about anything. They're going to edit it. They're going to let you see it. They're going to let you edit anything or, suggest edits. So don't worry about it. It's worth looking into, being on one of Brian's shows, because it really does help.
I'll share a tip for all the aspiring podcasters out there. When you're talking to your guests about the topics you're going to discuss, don't just write down the questions that you want to ask them. Like when you're taking notes, write down the points that they make. And then when you are preparing, which this is not a lot of preparation. I mean, if you have 5 or 6 questions, just have 3 bullets for each question, because your guests might get nervous and forget to give you all 3 of those bullets, and then just ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Because it'll make your guests will love you for it, because you made them look intelligent, and your audience will keep coming back because you gave them good content.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. So speaking of burning up, what kind of questions are you getting all the time for car washing or manufacturers? What kind of questions are you getting? What are people talking about right now?
What I'm most excited about in the car wash space is the technology is getting fun. I mean, like, when I first started really being focused on car washes, which is 8 years ago, when we acquired Professional Car Washing and Detailing, I kind of brought them into the Babcock's fold. And so I started learning everything about it. And I was shocked. I talked to a guy who said that, they find out that they have a leak when their water bill is too high. And I thought, wait, what? That can't be real. And I'm asking about, like, how do you monitor this, or how do you measure this? And they're like, well, and I'm like, holy mackerel, like, where's the technology? But and on the marketing side, it was probably even worse. But just since we got in, it's like I don't know that any industry I've ever been exposed to has adapted as quickly as car washes have in the last 8 years. I mean, really, really incredible, to the point of sensors, to the point of marketing acceptance, to the point of measuring and benchmarking multiple locations using different point of sales and everything. Like, you guys went from 0 to 60 really quickly.
Yeah, that's true. I think part of it was necessity, because when and not everybody can, obviously, but if you have someone within a couple miles of you and you have one good leader that can run an express tunnel right, they're going to take all your business. They're going to go from, that's what I did. We go from 60,000 to close to 250,000 cars a year in a certain amount of years. And if you don't adapt to that, guess what? You don't have a wash anymore. Because if a Rockin' Express wash does everything right, and they can wash 1,000 cars a day, they're going to take your business. So I think part of it was on necessity, just because people competed so quickly. They figured out, here's a formula, reoccurring revenue, get them in, get them out. Here's the recipe. And you better figure it out quick, because you're going to be left behind, right? It changed quickly.
Yep.
I would say it's actually very similar to media, right? People were writing for 80 years, 100 years. It was print. And then all of a sudden, if you didn't adapt to internet.
Yeah. If you don't like being on camera, you're not allowed to write anymore. And that's kind of the rule.
That's funny. I never thought about that. Yeah, that's pretty funny. So yeah, technology is one thing. What other, what else are you seeing in the car wash business or the car wash equipment business? What are you seeing?
Well, I'll tell you something that I observed. I haven't even shared this with you yet. I just got back from Las Vegas from the AIM Expo. I was hosting panels at it's a power sports show. So it's for all the power sports dealers. And I was shocked to see a lot of familiar faces. And I'm not going to name their names, but some of the investment companies that were all over the car wash shows for the last 5 years, now they're at the power sports show. So I haven't really drawn any conclusions, and so I don't want to share any to what that means, but draw your own conclusions. I mean, the guys that were pumping money into our industry are now at the power sports show, and they have never been there before.
Interesting. Hear it here first, folks. Hey, I'm glad to have a podcast, even though there's only 10 people subscribed right now, but you're hearing fresh information. You heard it here first. Man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff. That's good to know. You got me really inquired because when I was in automotive, we did have a power sports couple brands actually, and I was a little bit into that, so I'm real curious. Interesting, interesting. So what kind of, besides digital, any other major changes you're seeing from in car washing yourself? Any conversations that are more hot than others right now?
I think that the conversation about saturation is coming up more than I mean, not that it wasn't coming up in years past,
Yep.
but I feel like that a lot of people in a lot of markets feel that they finally have reached that point where
Yep.
they're saturated with locations.
Yep.
So I mean, technology is going to be important, process is going to be important, people are going to be important because there's a good chance in some of these more popular markets that there may not be enough business for everybody to survive. I mean, especially as with some of the inflation and other issues that our country has had, people's pocketbooks are a little bit tighter, and it's a lot easier to cancel your car wash membership than it is to not feed your kids.
Yeah, I agree. That is something I've been preaching for 5-6 years now, but may have been early to people really caring that much, but now they are caring because you're right. There's saturation plus inflation, and that leads to what I've been telling people for years. You better be alpha, and to be alpha, you need to educate. You need to have well-trained. You need to know your marketing because there's only so much that you have to go around. And I experienced that. You may have been out of automotive by then, but in the dealership world, and I use that story a lot. Like in my county, there was, half dozen, probably more than a half dozen dealerships of the same mothership, the same brand. And then 4 or 5 years later, there's one left. So if you don't have your act together, there was only so much money to go around, just one at a time, they would drop. And I think the same, it could happen with car washing if people aren't careful and they really need to, they really need to take it serious. They need to take their business serious, and they just can't be passive on it. So.
Yeah. I mean, and one thing that I noticed actually at the ICA show that was in December, there was a conversation about OTT, which is streaming television, commercials. And one of the things that was kind of interesting is I was talking to a group of car wash owners, and none of them were aware that you could do that the way that you can do it, where you can literally you can take all the people that that were members at one time and now aren't, or if you happen to have one of those license plate reading cameras pointed out at the street, all the people that drive by 4 times a week, or whatever list you have, you can take that list. You can through a marketing partner, you can upload that, and you can put commercials on their television at home while they're streaming to try to bring them back to be members, or to entice them to be a member for the first time. And a lot of the guys in that room were saying about they do direct mail for that. Well, direct mail costs about 8 times more than a commercial. Which one do you think works better?
Yep.
The car wash, a commercial to the car wash that you've been to before, or a direct mail piece in your mailbox? Not that direct mail doesn't work. I think it does, but I feel like that the on-demand commercials for the streaming television, I think that the winners in the next year are going to be the people that embrace that because it's cheap, it's easy, and it works.
Man, that's really good insight. I've been biting my tongue with like this whole podcast so far because I do know of some insights of the license plate recognition, and what I'm going to do is hopefully, I would say 6 to 10 weeks, I'll have someone that's at the forefront of that on this podcast and be happy to share. Most of that focus was on mailers, but I love the idea. It's easy to just flip a switch and use it for a commercial too. Why not? You have the information. So that's really good insight. And so what we're talking about, folks, is one-to-one marketing, I guess, is one way to put it. In other words, if you go in a newspaper or, again, a normal commercial instead, or mailers instead, you're only marketing people that go by your specific place of business 10 times a month or 20 times a month. So you're marketing directly to someone who should be your customer. And that's changing the game. That will change the game here. Those technologies are being shaken out, but they're real close, and they'll come out in a couple months. So
yeah, it's neat stuff. In the old days, like you said, you had to put an ad in the newspaper, and the newspaper has a circulation of people that might have to drive past 7 car washes to get to your car wash, as well as the people that are right in your backyard. And then with direct mail, you said, okay, well, I'm only going to mail to the zip codes that are right around me. But the problem is some of those people might drive to work the other direction. This is really just the next step in that. Now we're going to take the people that live far away but work right next door, the people that might live over there, but their daughter takes dance 5 days a week right next to your wash, or as well as the people that live nearby that drive by. But with car wash, it's not really important how close you live to it. It's important how frequently you pass it.
That's right. So accurate. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. So what are you seeing on the equipment side of things? Anything new happening there?
I mean, I feel like the equipment's just getting better and better in our industry,
Yep.
and I feel like with some of the forums that exist, and with online reviews and social media, I feel like car wash owners, like the slick salesman, really doesn't have a prayer of selling junk equipment anymore. I mean, unless you're just not paying attention.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like if you want to get the best equipment that's the most reliable, you're going to write a bigger check, and if you want to find yourself somewhere in the middle of that and something that's junk, there's an opportunity for you, but you no longer have to guess. You don't have to guess which one you're getting because it's pretty clear.
Yeah, it's getting more clear. I'm also seeing in the forums a lot of those slick salesmen are now on the forums.
Oh,
Or they'll certain entities that may not have the best stuff, but they're doing a good job of flooding forums of their distributors. This is a really unique business of working through distributors, which a lot of other sectors you buy directly from the company. We're here, and rightfully so, you should be going through distributors because they know it's not an easy install most of the time. Like, this isn't easy stuff. It's big time equipment. It's not easy to install. It's not easy to set up. So you need an expertise. And I tell you what, a lot is shaking behind the scenes. A lot is shaking because the big boys are also, they've purchased distributors and purchased whole markets, and now you're seeing things shake up there. There's a lot it's really interesting. It's really interesting to see what's going on. But the forums, you are correct, have changed, and it has made it more clear, in my opinion, because now you're naked in front of everybody, right? So what happens good, what happens bad, it's in front of everybody. They're going to talk about it. So
yeah. Well, you just got to think about it. Like, nobody would buy windows from their house without getting a few estimates, or a new roof without getting a few estimates. Talk to a few different people, and talk to a few of their customers. I mean,
there you go.
It's not like that. It's not like the financial industry where there's hundreds of thousands of employees. I mean, the car wash world's pretty small still, and if you don't know somebody that has that equipment, then meet somebody that has that equipment and talk to them about it. It's a big investment. It's a lot more expensive than buying new windows for your house.
100%.
So at least the same attention.
Yep, exactly. What going back to podcasts real quick, what makes, I asked you this, but I have from another angle, a good podcast. So say you have, 5 of the same type of company all wanting to do podcasts. How would they benefit? How would they stand out?
That's a question you kind of ask them. I mean, if those 5 companies know who they are and what they do great, and so I definitely wouldn't air 5 back to back to back to back to back.
Sure.
I don't want to talk about the same topic 5 times in a row, but I could easily have all 5 of them on in the same year, and I just come at it from a different angle. I mean, like you and I could probably sit down in my studio and shoot 14 podcasts in a day, and we wouldn't run out of stuff to talk about.
100%. Yeah. That's why I was actually going with it is, I was thinking the same thing, is like, go with your strengths. If I would say, don't be afraid. So in other words, if you saw another company on the podcast and you're an adjacent company, like, everybody has their pros and cons. Maybe you're not known for this, but your price point is great. Or maybe you're not known for that, but you're known for this. It's just go with your strengths, prepare that ahead of time. You asked the question, Brian, you mentioned earlier that, what are people asking about? Why do most people already buy your brand? Double down on that. And, but there's opportunity for everybody. I guess that was one thing I was trying to just inject in there. Like, everybody has opportunity to grow, but getting yourself out there, having a conversation, and bring value to the conversation. I guess that's another thing that I try to do, is if you bring a unique perspective and teach something that people don't know, I think they would find a lot of value in that. At least I assume.
Yeah. You always want to teach them something, because nobody wants to tune in and listen to a sales pitch.
Exactly.
If you give them, if you educate them a little bit, you're welcome. I mean, of course, I invite my guests to share a little bit about their unique, benefits they give their customers, but it's not a sales pitch. We're going to educate the audience, and through that education, you're going to demonstrate your expertise and the problems that you can solve for them. But rather than coming at it from, this is why you should buy from me, why don't you just give them something for free? I mean, it's like the law of reciprocity. You educate them, and then they believe the next thing that comes out of your mouth.
Yeah, I agree. It's worked for me pretty well, and it seems to be working for Babcock because you do have a pretty educational show. And at least what I've seen so far, you do a great job of it. And the marketing, everything's going. I'm really impressed with what I see coming out of your company right now and Babcock's and car washing and detailing and everything else. So it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch. And you guys timed it right, you know?
Thanks.
Yeah. So any other tips, tricks, or anything else you want to interject into the conversation?
You know, I have one observation. This is the first podcast I've done from my office.
Okay.
And I don't have drapes on the window. So you can see, like, I keep having the sun hits me in different parts of my face. I've been trying to dodge it. I always do them in the studio where there are no windows other than the control room.
Yeah.
So my going away parting gift is, if you're doing a podcast from your office, get some drapes or face the other direction.
You know,
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You know, it's really funny you say that. You might see dots on my face because I have blinds and they're closed, but they're going through the dots. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, you'll see a line of dots like I'm some alien. Right on my
You don't
face.
have to worry about that very much, though, in Ohio. I really shouldn't in New Jersey. How do we both get a sunny day on the same day in February?
That's so true. It's so dark, gloomy. Oh my gosh, yeah. But we'll take it. We'll take the sunshine. We'll take the salt, right? So how's the winter been out there so far?
You know, it's been pretty mild.
Okay.
We did get 7.5 inches of snow one day on the island, which I've been here 5 years and I've only seen a half inch once.
Wow.
So that was pretty interesting. But I mean, it's like a once every other year thing for us. It's pretty easy.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Now, so we're shooting. We'll have this out in time. In about 3 weeks, we're going to be 2.5 weeks, something like that. We're going to be at the SWCA. So, are you going to be there in Fort Worth, Texas?
I will not be at that one, but I will be at the ICA.
Okay. Will you guys have anybody there in case somebody wants to have a chat with Babcock's?
Yeah, Susan Gibbons will be there.
Okay.
And Sandy Murphy will be there. And I probably will have other team members. I'm just not.
Okay.
I'm not aware of what that is right now.
Yeah, or just come see me. I'll hook you up. I'm a good networker, so we'll get you linked up with somebody. So fantastic. Well, Brian, I appreciate your time greatly. I've been wanting to have you on here because I've been on yours a couple times, and just wanted to give you the freedom to chat about what you do because you're always there for everybody else. So
thank you. I appreciate it, Jason.
Yeah, great. Well, appreciate your time, and we're gonna call today here. We thank everybody for listening.
All right.